everybody, and welcome back to another episode here on Sticks and Bones with your ghost host, Chelsea and Tenn. Hi, Tenn. How are you?
I am fantastic because it's no longer in the 90s here. I am living my best life. It is crisp. I'm in a long sleeve shirt today.
Mm-hmm.
I am bringing in all of the fall feels. It is what is today? The 14th of September. We have passed the threshold. It is almost fall. So I'm very, very excited.
Well, when this episode airs,
Yes.
it should be closer to the end of September. So hopefully, past us is looking at future us and being like, I hope you guys got some crisp air out there.
I know. I hope it's crisp fall. I hope the leaves are crunchy. That's what I hope for future us.
Me too. I really wish that. I really wish that for future Chelsea and Tenn. They need some crisp fall air because we've got all the spooky things going on. I am just living my fall dream. I know we did the fall bucket list episode, which I
You
hope you
did?
all very much loved. I don't know, when I was editing that, I was genuinely laughing. I'm like, not to be biased, but we're kind of funny. I think we're funny.
I chuckle at us. I like to think we're funny.
I like to think we're funny, but I don't know. Do you guys think we're funny? Maybe that's why people listen to us. They think we're funny, not just for
Maybe.
our facts and all of the insane information that we just sometimes know, or
Oh
the
yeah.
hours we put into research because we just like get fascinated by topics like the Warrens or the Salem witch trials. Maybe
Honestly.
it's because we're funny.
I, I'd like to think so rather than just being like a walking treasure trove of useless information that like I'm ready to whip out at like the next like Jeopardy question, you
It's
know?
true. I swear, I was just on the phone with my dad, and sometimes I just say things, and he just like stares at me, and he's like, how do you know this? And I'm like, because I studied it. He's just like,
The other day, because we are now
okay.
we've begun football season, so
Yeah.
everybody we made it. But I asked something and Kevin looked at me and it was during a football game and he looks at me, he's like, you are the smartest person I know. And what just left your mouth was quite possibly the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, but sometimes when you just know too much, you sometimes just have a thought that just comes out that shouldn't have. So it
Oh,
happens.
no, absolutely. Like Kevin and I, when we were flying down to Mexico, I asked him, like, this is how nerdy we are. I was asking him, how many authors on an article does it take for you to be et al. In a citation? And we're having this like lively debate
Hmm.
on a flight. And then we ask each other something stupid about like common sense knowledge. And we both are just like, fuck, I don't know, man. Couldn't tell you.
So one thing I am extremely, first of all, I would not want to sit next to you on a flight if you guys just talk and do debates. I'm like trying to watch a movie and go to sleep.
I had to power out my article and I was just like, I don't know how many authors it takes to be an et al. I don't know.
You don't speak to me on a flight. If we ever fly together, just don't even look at me. I do not enjoy flying. You know, I have a bone to pick with airline company, and then I have another thought I need to say before I forget it.
Mhm.
I do that a lot. I'm like, oh, this thing, and then I forget to say it. And I listen back on the episode and I'm like, oh my God, your ADD is showing. Um, Airlines used to be so much more glamorous. Like, have you ever looked up an airplane in like the 70s?
Oh my God, yes.
They were like double stacked airplanes that had bars and like it was an enjoyable. I want to know why. So if anyone works for an airline, let us know.
Let
Maybe you
us
have the inside, the intel. Obviously, I think money is a factor, but
know.
flying used to be exclusive. It used to be glamorous. And now I just feel like a caged animal stuck in a chair. And it's so uncomfortable that your butt hurts.
Oh yeah, I was flying Frontier to Mexico and literally my iPhone was bigger than the tray. So I'm trying to teeter my
Crazy.
laptop on it to tip tap and type away and I'm like, but I'm not paying for more, so that's all I'm gonna get.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like business people are flying all the time. The least you could do is make the tray a little bit bigger for our laptops. I get that. I
Damn.
had to go on for a flight for business one time and I was like, this is the worst working experience I've ever had. Like you're crammed. The person next to you is totally reading what you're trying to type. And it's like cybersecurity issues. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, right? Where is our national security when we need them?
I can't remember the thought I was going into before.
We were talking about airplanes, glamorous fall, treasure troves of useless information.
It's gone.
Okay, damn.
Sorry, everybody. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know. But anyway, I do want to let the people know before Ted and I start the episode, we have another drop happening this week.
We do.
Surprise. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you didn't know that. We have another drop happening this week. This episode drops. It's happening on the 28th of September, which I believe is a Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the girls have been waiting for. This now is the Dark Spelled Elixir Collection. And when I tell you what we've spelled and created, this is for the people that are really trying to get jiggy with it in terms of witchcraft.
This is for the girls. This is the girls that girl.
Because the last episode I was yelling at the girls because the girls are crying over boys. The girls are not girling anymore. And I'm like, you know what, girls? Now I got to create something for the girls that need help.
we gotta curse and we gotta make some casseroles, girls. Let's go. Let's go, girls. What are we doing?
This literally, let's go, girls. Shania Twain happening in the background. This is Crone Girl Summer. So let me tell you what's coming. Shall I give them the lineup, Tenn?
Give them the lineup. Knock that door down. Everything. Let's go.
Okay, so here are some of the elixirs coming out. So gird your loins because these are crazy. These are also like limited. We make limited because of how intense they are. I just want to preface it. They are intense when you hear what they're for. So the first one we have is Aqua Tofana. Aqua Tofana. So if you don't know the story of Aqua Tofana, I highly suggest you Google it. Aqua Tofana was a poison that was developed in Italy by, what was her name? Julia Tofana, where women were given poison to their husbands because they wanted to be free from their marriages.
Here at Styx and Bones, we support women.
We're here for the women. We're here for the girls. Everybody's a girl here. And I feel like this goes nicely in today's episode because we're going to be talking about Persephone today and talk about arranged marriages and kidnapping and unwanted marriages. We're going to get to that, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, so this is spelled for liberation. It is not spelled for poison. So don't try to give this to somebody and poison them. That's not what it's for. It's based off of that, but it's for liberation. So if you need to liberate yourself from something that no longer serves you, Aqua Tofana is like the inspiration behind that. So it's not for, being a crying widow at the door with a robe and the police ask you where your husband is and you're like, I don't know.
No. Oh my God, he's dead.
No, throws yourself on the floor dramatically. No, it's not that.
There's no belladonna in it. There is no toxic anything in this. But please don't ingest it. While it is shiny, please don't ingest.
Don't ingest. This is for spell workings and to liberate yourself. Sometimes you just have things holding your back and you're like, I need to get the hell out of here. That's what that's for. Second, we have Deadly Nightshade, which, by the way, this has no poisonous herbs in it, just inspired by the name. Yes. This is like a dark siren. This is for deep attraction and lust. So like, think of a siren, but dark.
Yes. Think of
a smut book.
Yeah.
Trying to have that kind of time. You're trying to lure somebody in. That's what you're trying to do with this.
Honestly, we're getting into spicy cold time of the year where you just need a good smut book.
Sometimes you need to have a good time with your partner.
That's all we're gonna say.
That's all I'm gonna say. Sometimes you have a good time by yourself. That's all I'm gonna say about that too. I support. Okay. Anyway, the next one we have is the Inferno. This one we talked about already.
Yes,
if you listened to the Lucifer episode. If you didn't, you better go back and listen to Lucifer's episode. It was great. We did a lot of work on that one. This is for forbidden knowledge and is inspired by the fallen angels, the Watchers, Dante's Inferno, and the forbidden knowledge that demons, are supposedly teaching us out here. So this is good if you're studying, if you're in school, if you are looking for more spiritual knowledge, knowledge on somebody else.
It gives you like a dark edge. Like, how are you going to one up somebody?
Yeah, if you need to be cunning in a situation, this is the oil that you want.
Think the restricted section.
Yeah, we're thinking Slytherin too. Like really encapsulating the Slytherin vibes. Maybe you need to use it on yourself so you can be a Slytherin. Actually have the cunningness and everything that would put you in that house. Okay, 2 more. This one, I got a story about this one.
Oh, geez, I know the one.
You were there. Okay. This is Maelstrom, and I will not be making this from now on. This is going to be Tenn's to deal with. This is to inflict chaos upon somebody. So we really said we were coming out stuff with the girls. If you're trying to mess somebody up, this is the oil.
This is the oil for you. Boy, do I have the oil for you. Ladies and gents, look over here.
To inflict chaos. So listen, sometimes someone just piss you off and you got to inflict some chaos in their life. You can even put somebody's name in this oil and shake it like a jar
Yeah, shake it like
if
a
you really
Polaroid
don't like
picture.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was making this oil. I was making a test run, and Tenn and I were talking about something for the podcast, and we never get like we do have disagreements, but we never get like nipping. You know what I mean? Like nipping like chihuahuas. Like, no, I don't like that. Well, I don't like this. I don't like that. We never get like that. We're always like, okay, touche. I see your point. How can
Yes.
we meet in the middle? We're pretty logical girls over here. We do have
Hmm.
disagreements, but they're never like, how
It's
dare
never
you?
like the lines have been drawn and we're in the trenches now.
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm making this oil and it's me. I'm being the problem. I'm inflicting the chaos. And as I'm making this oil, I feel like this rage bubbling up inside of me. And I'm like, what is wrong with Tenn? Like, I don't want to do any of the things she's suggesting. Like, I hear myself talking to myself and I'm like, I'm nipping at her and being like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to do that. Why would you say that? Like, really just being like not nice
I was like, maybe she's having an off day. I was like,
out of nowhere.
it's like, you okay? You okay? Everything okay?
And she's arguing back with me. Usually she would stop, like, if this were ever happened, she'd be like, okay, what's your deal?
What's going on? What's going on in the
What's
House of Commons?
You need to
House of
talk to
Chelsea.
somebody. This is out of character. So then I'm done with the oil. I put it down and I wash my hands. I feel fine. Then I was like, it's the oil.
Straight hissy puffy central.
It was causing a little bit of chaos. So I highly suggest you wash your hands after using this.
Oh yeah, and if you're like, what kind of like chaos? Like, what is a maelstrom? Have y'all watched the third Pirates of the Caribbean where they're
Yes.
literally like up a shit river with no paddles and you're just swirling in a vortex of terror? Yeah, that's a maelstrom.
Oh, sometimes you just need to inflict chaos upon people because they're shitty. Okay. And the last one we have, this one's my favorite. Corpse, which is to drain. Yes, you
Mm-hmm.
heard me right. Now, this might scare a lot of you and be like, what the hell do you guys do? This is some types of magic that we do practice, and corpse is really to drain. Now, it's to drain however you want to take that. You're not actually like draining somebody's life force. Let's not get crazy. You can
No.
drain someone's finances. You can drain someone their energy if you want to.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like energetic vampire.
You can
Um,
become the parasite. Yeah. So this is all coming out on the 28th, and we're really excited. So this is like the darker side of the store when you want something baneful or something a little bit more intense, like liberation for yourself,
mhm.
deep attraction, and then we have all forbidden knowledge. Then we have two that are like really baneful.
Look out.
Yeah. So we're
It's,
excited about that.
it's for the times when you're like, I'm gonna let this work its way out because if I fix it, I'm going to jail.
Exactly. Sometimes you just need a potion.
Sometimes you just need a nice shiny elixir.
Sometimes you just need to use corpse. So that's it. So it's coming out on the 28th. We're really excited. And we have more drops happening. October, one of the beanies that I'm wearing on YouTube, this is coming out in October, and we have other fun things. So it's
Mhm.
just gonna be fun all the way into fall. We did our winter line. So we got a lot of fun things coming. So buckle up,
Oh my God.
everybody.
Before we begin, literally to the people, Chelsea and I, before we were even getting into Halloween Town Central over here, we had a conversation and we were like, look, because of our time, our schedule in December, I don't think we're gonna have time to do it like Christmas or Yule launch. And we were both were like, yeah, like last year it was fun, but like we just don't have the time. Like we're two
Mm-hmm.
exhausted girls. And then of course, we've produced this incredible Halloween Samhain line, and then we both looked at each other the other day like we're doing a goddamn Yule line. Like, of course
Yeah,
we are.
couldn't help it. The
Wow.
creativity was just flowing, and I was like, oh, this is something that the girls need for the winter time. So after that, we'll be taking a very long break in December, so you won't see us. So, you might be sick of us now, but we're gonna be gone in December.
Yeah, you're gonna have to literally perform necromancy and summon us from beyond the grave. So
And I'm still gonna be like, no,
now
I'm
just
sleeping. Who dare disturb my rest? Like, I really hope one day when I'm dead, the girls perform necromancy and summon me again.
I feel like I would
I
go
love
down.
that.
Like I would give my whatever as a ghost that was summoned, and then like Snow White Wicked Witch style underneath the thing, like as I go back to the underworld.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like a troll.
I like come up, lift up the earth, grab my offerings, and go back under.
Now, I got a question. Would you give them the answers they are seeking?
I think I would make them answer these riddles 3.
Oh, so no, we will all be failing Tenn's test.
No, I think there would be a buffer question so that I would know like what your end goal was. But like if you're coming out there and you're gonna summon my ass to ask where's this treasure buried? No, I'm telling you when you're dying.
You know what, Tenn? I can get on board with that.
You know what?
If you're summoning me to explain to me about your breakup with this man or whoever your partner, that's terrible. I'm telling you when you're dying. Don't summon me for that. Summon me to be like, you know what, Chelsea? I have a problem. And this person, they're getting on my last nerve. I want you to go haunt them. You know what? I would do it. If you had the right offerings, what else are we doing in the underworld?
Not
Sleeping?
much. Sleeping. Rowing a boat. I don't know.
What are we doing down there? Yeah. So you know what? If anyone finds this when I'm dead, I'll give you permission to summon me via necromancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have Hecate raise me from the dead.
Yeah, you're gonna maybe you'll have like a special knock because you don't have to like hit the ground twice. I feel like we're gonna have to like establish like a special knock for us.
Yeah, for the Styx and Bones girlies, we will establish a knock. So when you want to summon Tenn and I from the great beyond, we'll just establish a knocking pattern.
Yeah, I'd want that.
What was that resource you had a while ago on ancient Greece? Like, imagine if that was one of the questions. Hey, can you guys tell me about Hades?
Hey, did you had a bibliography and was this the correct author?
Yeah. Chelsea, I need you to tell me about that paranormal story one more time. I would literally like, yeah, sure, take a seat.
Got around for a ghost story.
Okay. Oh, it really is Crone Girl fault. Anyway, okay, shall we dive into well, before we do it, it's the new moon, Tenn. How are you feeling?
It's the new moon for us, so happy Dapnon. I'm feeling good, honestly. I'm ready for the fall season, and I think this new moon is like really like kicking it off, you know?
Let me tell you something. No one asked me. I'm glad you're feeling good. I'm feeling terrible.
Why are you feeling terrible?
Because I feel like sometimes when the new moon happens, shadow work arises. This concept of let's reflect on something that you happened to you a while ago happens to you. And it's happening to me today. I've been a hissy puffy all day today.
You didn't even touch the maelstrom.
I didn't touch any. No spell workings. I've done my Depnon. I've appeased the goddess Hecate. And now I'm looking at her like, why? Why must she make me reflect today? I've given you nice offerings. I've cleaned your altar and left some incense. What is going on?
Okay.
You know. But yeah, I'm not feeling good today, but the podcast always helps. So, you know, I hate thinking about things. I just rather tuck it away in a box.
Shove it in the back.
And deal with it another day. And that day will be when I'm dead. So
maybe bury it in a pit and light it on fire. Who's to say?
it's not healthy. No one said it was. I'm very aware.
I'm aware of my faults.
I will tell you openly my faults. I don't want to deal with this today, but I am.
Yeah, he got us sometimes.
Anyway. Okay. Shall we dive into today's episode? Today we are talking about Persephone. And a lot of you are probably like, you know what, Chelsea and Tenn? Why have you never done an episode like this before? Good question. We asked ourselves the same.
We don't know.
The answer is we don't know. We've done an episode on Persephone, debunking on why she's not a Mycenaean goddess. We've also done the Eleusinian Mysteries, which is her mystery cults and religion with Demeter. And today we're going to be doing Persephone as just Persephone.
We really took the scenic route to get here. Like we were like, let's start with the most obscure things about her.
Yeah, but we never, I don't know. I think maybe it's because I feel like the lore of Hades and Persephone is so widely known that I just felt never the pull to talk about it. Cause it's like, okay, you're going to listen. You come to listen to us because we talk about the weird shit. That to me is not weird anymore because it's not the weird, obscure, ancient mythology. It's mythology that's plastered everywhere, which is the reason why we are talking about it because of the misconceptions that come out of this about Persephone and who she actually is. See?
Yes. No, I mean, we love to talk about the strange and taboo, and we are truly the weirdos in your stereo right now. But now it's coming at a time, when this is airing, it's after the autumnal equinox. So, fall is happening, the seasons are changing, which she in mythology is responsible for. So, where do you want to start though for like this big topic of Persephone? And for the general listeners, we are not going to be reciting the hymn to Demeter. So just cross that off your list today.
No, we are not, but I want to state something that I've observed
Mhm. Hit
as
me.
a high priestess of King Hades and a devotee to the Chthonic. Obviously, I
Mhm.
worship Persephone pretty heavily. I think a lot of these misconceptions about her come from the parodies of Greek mythology,
Uh-huh.
which is fine as long as you understand it's a parody.
Uh-huh.
Come from people getting into Hellenism, but not actually understanding 100% the society of Greece and what was going on in the time period and why these stories were happening.
Correct. You got me. Hmm.
And also, I just genuinely think it's misogyny against women and placing women in certain boxes that they were never in. I think a lot of people, and I'm just coming out straight off the gate, diminish Persephone and her power
You do.
often. And that is what we're really here to debunk today of she's probably one of the most powerful goddesses in the Greek pantheon,
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
would state.
Your Honor, I'm putting it into evidence. And not only that, but I think you rightfully captured it of so many of us have, been on Pinterest late at night, making our boards and everything. And you come across that box or, image that's like, be the one that wears the flower crown and also is the queen of the underworld, which
Right.
on Pinterest they also associate it with the queen of hell, which okay. Um, and it's like you two can be both, like be the pastel flower girl and be the death and dark one. It's like, yes, I absolutely agree with that because there's lightness and darkness in everybody, and it's all about that balance. But what we're missing is kind of diminishing Persephone, as you said, and making her this like flower girl, and then all of a sudden this like queen ruler who is, when I think visually, so much smaller and just being squashed on by Hades. When she, in so many ways, is, like you said, one of the most powerful goddesses, that she's also held on the same kind of standard ground line as him, which so many other women and goddesses did not get.
No, 100%. And I also think, to add to your point, the glorification of Hades and Persephone and their relationship has something that has taken a complete extremity on online and online communities when she was kidnapped against her
Mm-hmm.
will, even though he had permission.
Yeah.
But also, instead of just looking at the myth, we have to, and we're going to be doing this today, we have to
Mm-hmm.
look at what was going on in the time period. And in this time period, and we've said this before, women were basically being sold off
You were
into other
child.
families as a child, like 12, literally 12 years old. And you were lucky that you even had a marriage that was amicable,
Yep.
one of friendship. It was not for love. And this is the story of Hades and Persephone. It was, he saw something he liked, he arranged for it to happen. Her and Demeter had no say, and she was whisked off into the underworld. Now, she did gain power from that, becoming a queen. So you can argue that Hades did give her power, but don't sit here and say it was a marriage of they fell in love and it was so. No, he kidnapped her, put her in his chariot, and that was it.
And said, "Yip yip, down we go."
Here we are.
It's that, and yeah, you would hope for amicability, you would dream of friendship with your partner, but at the same time this tale is being written of Hades saw something, wanted it, got it, but there was an exchange going on, and the exchange happens with power, and we don't see this power dynamic, power shift occurring really elsewhere. In this myth we also see female power with Demeter, because she does something
Yes.
that so many others, and we've said this before, so many other women wouldn't have been able to do. She went toe to toe with Zeus and
Mm-hmm.
came out winning. But it is Persephone at the end of the day who is so multifaceted, having associations to the sky because of her father. associations to the earth because of her mother and associations to the underworld because of her husband, that she, in a sense, is everything. She is everything and death at the same time.
You're absolutely right. And for those of you that don't know this, her father is Zeus.
Yes.
I think that always shocks people when you say that, but her father is Zeus. So like one of the most powerful Greek gods, right? He is king of the gods, and that is her father. So I think once again, she gets diminished
Mhm.
in spiritual spaces, um, in online places and communities when people are writing about her, even in mythology, like listen, Lore Olympus, I get it, but even diminishing Persephone and Lore Olympus and these retellings because they just think she's some like silly little maiden running in the I have a flower crown and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
When she is actually in the ancient sense so much more than that. And
Terrifying.
that's what we're going to talk about today, even in her role as queen of the underworld. And a lot of this is modeled, this is why we say you have to look at the time period and what's going
Mhm.
on the familial relationships within the household and the position that women take in the household.
Yes. And not only the position women take, but the position of the family of the upper classes, because this is
Yes.
not going to be happening for everybody. And the best archaeological preserved evidence that we do have is going to be coming from this upper 1%. So this is only for like the richest of rich individuals. This would not have been everybody. In fact, arranged marriages likely were not occurring for the lower class individuals.
So, do you want to start maybe with her aspect of Queen of the Underworld? Because for those of you that don't know, we have no exact date. This is based off of what was happening at Eleusis. We personally celebrate and believe that Persephone came back on the fall equinox
Yes.
to the underworld. Now, there is a lot of debate on this, and we've talked
Mhm.
about this here on this podcast, and that's fine.
Yeah.
This is personally the way Tenn and I worship and celebrate and what we've been taught to do. You don't have to follow this, but we look at it as like Persephone comes back to Hades on September 21st in the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere. Um, so we're following like what Greece would do.
Hmm.
And I really feel like we should start with the Queen of the Underworld aspect because she is now rejoined with Hades and ruler again of the Underworld.
Yeah. So where she is as Queen of the Underworld, we assume that it is going to be taking place at the back end of September, because Eleusis is celebrating two initiations a year. The first is in the springtime. It is, I want to say, like Marchish, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's when the vernal equinox is. And that is to bring about, spring and everything. She is bringing life back and everything. And once life leaves us, she is going back to the underworld. So this is the time period when this would be happening. But as Queen of the Underworld, she also receives um extras, power, titles that is not allowed to other women. She has sway over her husband. And think of it as, in any marriage, because, she is legitimately married to Hades. And this is a legitimized relationship. She holds some sway over her husband, just like any partnership today would. You're a couple, you have to work some decisions out together. Sometimes, maybe one will get more power over the other, and you have to back down a little bit. But she is able to go toe to toe with her own husband and press those boundaries and lines that other women could have only dreamed of. And that is what makes her so powerful, so like just a force to be utterly reckoned with. Is that her name literally can be translated into like the destroyer. There are instances where she is feared, and the dead worship her. Like, the dead, these shades in the underworld, are worshiping her, not as their queen, but as a goddess, and they are venerating her.
I don't think a lot of people know that. And it makes sense when you think about it, because when we look at, and for Patreon, we're going to do an episode on Hades and Persephone on Patreon, talking about some other things. We're going to do a Lucis part 2, the Acheron, etc. But today we're just talking about Persephone. But when you look at Hades and Persephone and how traditional marriages, once again, we have to associate it with what's going on in the time period.
Mm-hmm.
The man kind of takes charge of like the rules and like the order in the household, right? The women are known for being the host, the
Yes.
matriarch, the mother of the household. So when we were looking at her Queen of the Underworld aspect earlier, and we saw that the dead were worshiping her, and she really does take care of them, and has given promise to some of them that, you know, there will be more promising things in their next afterlife. It's almost like she takes a motherly figure to the deceased and helps people through grief, and that's a very motherly thing to do. But Hades is her home, that's her house. So she is therefore the matriarch of that household.
Yes. And with that matriarch, she absorbs all of those powers that she would have had, in the mortal realm. And some people, some shades, so those of the deceased who would worship her, they would get that promise of a better life. And some, after, 9 years of service in the name of Persephone as a shade, they would have been rewarded by going back into the land of the living, so the mortal realm, and they would share their stories of serving this goddess of the underworld who, going through her own grief and everything as a mother, she in some tellings is the mother of Dionysus, and he was killed in a myth. So as a mother, she's grieving in a land of the dead. So by serving her, she rewards her followers, and it is this insane story of life, death, and rebirth, this cyclical cycle just continuing every single year. And even, showcasing that she does have some sway over her own husband. We see that with the mythology of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus's wife, Eurydice, dies very, very young, and he goes down, and it's Persephone that he's trying to persuade. She's the first line of defense, and in some cases, probably the toughest line, right?
I would
Like,
think this is the toughest line. Yeah.
sometimes, like, I think about like my own marriage of like, when you want something done, you go to the wife. You don't go to the husband. Like,
No, you don't. And we were talking about this earlier, and I was even relating it to like my Italian family, because they're pretty
mhm.
traditional, and it's like that's just the way it works. It's not a bad thing. It's just like the men run the household a certain way, but the women always have the sway. And there's this one line that I love. For any of you that has seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's one of my favorite movies. The aunt says, no, the mother says, men, they are the head of the household, but women, we are the neck. We can turn the head any way that we want it to turn. So women always have the, and I feel like they do in a lot of different cultures. While it may look like the man is running things, and they might be in a different way,
Yes.
the woman has sway. And we see that in even some of the petitions to the underworld, where people are petitioning Hades to appease, I mean, I'm sorry, petitioning Persephone to appease Hades.
Hmm.
And listen, let me tell you something. We said this in the Hades episode, and a lot of people did not like the way we talked about Hades and Persephone, because once again, I think it comes from this idea of like, I want a chthonic type of love. I don't want this. Thank you very much. It's a reflection of the time period, and we have to be very realistic about
Hmm.
what we're talking about here.
No, at the end of the day, this is a story of power.
It's not a story of love. I
This
hate to
is
break it to you guys. Like,
this is not the ancient Romeo and Juliet. This is not the ancient Pride and Prejudice. Like,
no, this is a story of power. This is a story of a king getting what he wants and not caring about who gets hurt in the process of it. That is, it went by the rules
it was by the book.
against women.
And
So
as the neck of the underworld, she is able to sway her husband into letting shades out for necromancy. She is also able to kind of host the shades of the underworld. She creates different realms for them. And, she was able to sway Hades' rage at Orpheus for coming down into the underworld, first of all, and demanding an audience with the king. So she was able to kind of like temper that. She knows her husband better than anybody. and was able to say, no, let's hear him out. The diplomat, the matriarch that she is, and is able to complete this, which, women, if you were in the upper class, you would have, duties and everything, but, you also knew that there was a line that you couldn't pass.
Right. No, you're
No,
so right.
absolutely. Like you were wife and that was it. But it's different with Persephone, even compared to other goddesses. Yes, she is wife, but she is also queen. She is on sometimes in some writings and mythologies, she is also like almost his equal in a sense. Like they are on the same level. But at the end of the day, he is still king and lord of the underworld.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it goes back to that, oh, Persephone's just, Hades' wife. No, it's so much more than that. And it's right here in the writings. Ten and I don't make up Greek mythology. We don't sit here and, yeah, sometimes we do have our own bias in it because we do worship Hades and Persephone. But if you're looking at the time period and what's going on compared to the mythology, it's very blatant, clear as day as this how this myth is and what is going on.
Yeah, and I think another lesser known aspect. So while Queen of the Underworld, she is worshipped by, some of the deceased members of the underworld, but in the mortal realm, we have associations with her in marriage, which absolutely shocking because when so many people hear marriage in ancient Greece, you immediately are like, that's Hera's job.
Mm-hmm.
Nay, I say, sometimes other goddesses are also called in to have associations with marriage. And I can't think of a better one than Persephone, who is literally a walking like rite of passage personified of girl marriage being like her quote unquote death and then wife. Like that's what it was as a young woman in Greco-Roman society. You were a girl, you were a maiden, and then wife. That was it. That was
Yeah, you were training your whole life to be a wife.
yes, you were training your whole life.
That
Likely
was your job. That was it, wife.
wife, likely matriarch, perhaps, learning from your own mother of how to run a household, but like that was what your training was.
Yeah, no, and actually in Italian culture, and I always like to compare it to my Italian family because we are talking about the Mediterranean area, and this is where all of this
Mhm.
really is coming from. Women even today, like in my family, are expected to run the household, be the host, and like you learn that at a very young age. And it's not like oppressive, it's just like a job that you take on.
Mhm.
And it's kind of hard when you're like a working woman. I
Mhm.
have like some family members that have a very traditional marriage where it's like the woman runs the household and the dinner and like the hosting and the parties and keeping in contact with everybody. And that is what they do.
That is a full-time job, man.
Yeah, it is a full-time job in itself. And some people truly like abide by that. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it does make a lot of sense. Also, I think this is interesting too, because I do this. I actually dedicate a lot of my relationship things and marriage stuff to Aphrodite.
Well, this is
She's
going to
associated with marriages.
she is. And that brings me to kind of my next aspect of marriage associations with
Yes.
Persephone, because Aphrodite does play a role in this. So, marriage and death in mythology and practices, just everyday life back in the day, really go hand in hand with the ancients. So, at the site of Loch Roy, which is in southern Italy, young girls would have left votive tablets leading up to their wedding day. And by doing so, they would have asked for Persephone's blessing and protection for their marriages as they go through that transitional process. And the marriage would have been that transition, the wedding itself. And they would have dedicated it to Persephone as Kore, as the maiden, just as she was before her own marriage. And at this southern Italian site, Persephone is the protector of marriage and seems to be a local tradition here. Nobody else from the outside in this area was really looking at Persephone this way. And on these tablets, the most common scenes were divine imitation scenes, so scenes from mythology, really. And usually it was the kidnapping scenes, and we'll get into kidnapping in a bit. And some of these instances show women struggling, while others show women grabbing the reins of the chariot and taking charge of everything herself, which really highlights that some brides felt more quote unquote abducted than others, depending on who you were marrying into.
Right.
And Persephone was likely chosen over Hera in this instance, as these transitions and rites of passage are, in a sense, death and rebirth, during which the girl or the individual could mourn who they used to be as a child, as a young girl of her father's household, and then celebrate their new self with their husband and their new family as this act of rebirth, in a sense. And votive offerings prior to marriage, we believe, were also left at the temple to Demeter in Kore in Corinth, which is near the temple to Aphrodite. And both were left as offerings for marriage because we also see this in the site in southern Italy, that Aphrodite is also found in this cultic worship with Hades and Persephone. So Aphrodite's presence is not accidental. And together, Persephone and Aphrodite, along with their consorts, represent a spectrum of love and lust appropriate to a marriage related cult that's concerned with fertility. So you are getting the marriage, the legitimized marriage with Hades and Persephone. So that's how heirs would be viewed. And then you get the lust side with Aphrodite. So we have two aspects of love and marriage coming together in cultic worship for these young girls to be giving offerings and dedications to.
And you need both. You need both to make a marriage work, right?
Amen.
You need both, you know? So it makes sense. But yeah, I had just a little like UPG. When I started worshiping Aphrodite, I really felt like she wanted me to dedicate a lot of the things I do with relationships to her. And I never really understood why until I like dug deeper. And I was like, oh my God, she actually is associated with relationships and marriage just in like a very different way, but still extremely valid. So I love that. So if you also, I know we're talking about Persephone, but if you also worship Aphrodite, you know, that's something you can incorporate in your worship because it was done.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's why a lot of stuff with Kevin and I do for Persephone. And it's like, but everybody's mind goes instantly to Hera.
See, mine never did, but I think that's always because I heavily been worshiping Aphrodite. So I had always wondered because I'm like, oh, isn't this really like a Hera thing? But no, there's other goddesses out there that have those associations. But fascinating that you were saying this was happening in the southern of Italy with Persephone.
Yes, it was southern Italy. I was gonna pull up a map and like pinpoint
No,
it
it's okay.
to pull it up for you, but it's called Lochroy, and there's a secondary word that I'm gonna butcher live, so I'll send it to you later.
No, it's fine. I find that interesting because in my folk practice in the southern part of Italy, Demeter is used heavily in fertility, and she's found very heavily in the southern part of Italy. So that makes sense.
So there are,
that Persephone is there.
There are associations with Hades, Persephone, and Demeter being involved mythology wise, whether they were raised there or something happened mythologically in Sicily.
Yes,
and Sicily
I do know that
is a huge aspect of that. And I'm blanking on why that is, but Sicily is tied in.
Yeah, so the southern part of Italy is heavy, like in royal tradition. We've talked about this in the Mary episode, heavy with Demeter and fertility, like the fertility aspect specifically. It's not even just harvest, it's fertility.
Well, that makes sense because she's an agrarian goddess. So she is, you know, producing life in plants that is going to sustain the earth, like food wise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is different than Persephone, who helps bring in spring, where she's usually associated differently from her mother by doing more flowers and everything, while her mom is doing like grain and like differences.
Well, I think this flows perfectly into the next part of this because we were talking today about how when you see Persephone paired with Demeter, she appears more subservient, where not so much I'm queen of the underworld. It's more like that's my mom and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be quiet.
Because I know if I talk back to my mom, she's going to come around my arm at 30 years old almost and pinch my underarm fat.
Yeah. I'm going to get a timeout.
I don't know. Did your mom ever do anything when you were like talking smack in a grocery store?
Oh, my mom, she would purse her lips a certain way.
Oh, no.
This, you know what I mean? Like if you're watching on YouTube, and I just knew when I got home, I was in big trouble. The pursing of the lips, like it's burned into my memory.
I got the pinch under the arm, and Kevin, he claims that there's a scar. I've never seen it. He claims his mom used to flip her wedding ring on the inside so that the stone was on the inside of her hand, and she would grip his wrist.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah. What? Oh, if I was out to dinner or we were like with company and I was talking out of line or saying something I wasn't supposed to, my mom would kick me under the table. Did anyone ever get that? The kicks out, like, don't say that. Like it's an Italian thing. Like you don't always share everything that's going on. And I'm an open book where I'm like, yeah, I hate my job. Yeah, I'm depressed today. And like you're not really supposed to like say
That
those
table
things.
is shaking.
Yeah, my mom's like, shut up. So that was another one of like, oh shit, I'm in trouble.
No, but I mean, she is viewed as a subservient goddess to her mother, especially with like the Eleusinian mysteries, seen as an equal with her husband. But that makes sense. Like I think of my own marriage. If Pilar's coming over, yeah, she's the mom, she's the matriarch. But I'm with Kevin. Mm-mm. Fair's fair, man.
Absolutely. And I wasn't really surprised when we were reading about that because I feel like if you look once again at the time period,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right, you could be a married woman, but at the end of the day, if her mom's still alive, like your mom is like you're always going to listen to your mom.
Yeah.
Your mom is like the matriarch. Like in my family, the matriarch is like our grandmother. My grandmother, she passed, but like if you're a grandmother, you are an elder, you deserve that respect. And like I doesn't matter what my title is, I'm sitting down and I'm shutting up,
Yeah.
you know?
Hands folded, waiting for dinner.
Like, yes, I have duties, yes, I will help you, but this is my mother at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that makes a lot of sense when you look at the dynamic of like a mother-daughter relationship. So once again, this is why we say like when you're studying mythology, it helps. Mythology is just not enough when you're looking at the gods. You
No.
have to understand the time period in which all of this was written. And I say this till I'm blue in the face because, like I said, a lot of people don't like the way we discuss things, but it's not us making these things up. It's just the nature of what's going on. And I know it's uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. I think that kind of leads into the next point of let's talk about kidnapping. Have you heard about
Yes.
kidnapping, everybody? It's a real epidemic.
So I don't even know if that was a good segue or not, Tenn.
I
Have
don't
you
know.
heard the good news about kidnapping? Now, let me tell you about this one story in ancient Greece.
Let me tell you about marriage and kidnapping and how they too go hand in hand.
So, we wanted to talk about this and felt it was important because, once again, I think there's a lot of retellings that come out here that glorify the relationship of Hades and Persephone. And some actually take it to the extreme in a, God, I feel terrible saying this, sexual way. And it's like, okay, we all let's put the cards on the table. Tenn and I read spicy books. Let's just say it for how it is.
We love a good kidnapping trope. We do.
We do,
We
but
love
we
it.
wouldn't want it to actually happen to us.
Correct. We love a good arranged marriage.
The mafia boss, yeah, we're into it.
Shared bed at the inn. There's only one bed at the hotel room.
Yeah,
We live for it at 3 o'clock in the morning.
yes, we do in a fantasy book.
Do I want that happening? Do you think I want Kevin to kidnap me?
Oh
No.
no, no, it's terrible. So it's weird when people like you have to be able to
Separate church and state with
separate it because the idea of the kidnapping of Hades and Persephone was once again the idea of young girls that are 12 being sent off and sold off into marriages because they were now ready to be mothers. Like that's basically what was happening here.
yes. So I implore everybody to be like, okay, I enjoy this trope. Awesome. I'm gonna leave that over here. I'm gonna understand that abduction myths are also equally existing in time and space over here, and they should remain separate. But it's okay. Like we're not saying like, oh my god, if you're into like kidnapping tropes and like spicy books, like
Oh,
that's bad.
no
No,
way. Because I
no,
read them.
no. But it's saying like, Chelsea and I could poke fun at ourselves, but just being like, huh, I am into this, but also I understand that abduction myths was a ritual enactment of marriages in ancient Greece. So, like,
Right. And
no.
like to actually apply that to Hades and Persephone to me is just, I guess because I know the way women were viewed in the Greco-Roman period that I don't subscribe to that notion of like, it was this love story. And yeah,
No.
no,
Keep
it was a terrible thing. Like,
keep spicy stories over here. Keep mythology over here, you know?
Yeah, and I just see it a lot. And like, people can have their own concept of a myth, but it's it's negates everything that was going on in ancient times that we have documented, that we know for a fact was happening. And let's be honest with you, being a woman in ancient Greece probably was not where you wanted to be. Let's just put that out there.
No, and to kind of just dive on into the deep end of, kidnapping, mock abductions were actually forms of like marriage rituals, and abduction as marriage, also known as bridal theft, was common in ancient mythology. And it was also known to occur like physically, like outside of like Hades and Persephone in their mythology. Like physically, we know that this bridal theft, this abduction ritual would occur in Sparta, as noted by Plutarch. Like it just happened. It was part of this like pomp and circumstance that was happening. And if we refer back to that southern Italian settlement, we do also see this aspect of mock abduction occurring. So we see that Persephone here is viewed as both the victim of bridal theft and also the queen of the underworld. And there's other abduction scenes in the Greek world. And these abduction scenes, I want to make very, very clear, they are very different than like erotic chase scenes, because the male in these scenes are never using weaponry. They're never using spears. They're never using force. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like the erotic chasing scenes are like more like lust, dark, heavy, like that kind of stuff. But here it's marriage, it's ritualized. The man is never using force. He is never, using a grabbing motif, which carries a really strong connotation of violence and like force in a marriage. So it's very, very different. And it's really interesting to note the two. And we even see this occurring in Athens, where the transferring of the bride to her husband's house was dramatized by separation. And in many instances, a mother would grieve, and the groom's companions who would follow him during this time would call for the girl's abduction to occur. Like this
Yeah.
was like theatrical. And
I also, not to cut you off, but while it's theatrical, I also have to imagine that some people probably didn't want to do this. Like I could just think like it's
the
something
girls
to do.
must have been terrified.
It must be like, can you imagine like embarrassing? It must be like not embarrassing, but you don't want to be in, you probably, I'm just taking a stab in the dark, don't want to be doing this marriage anyway. You don't really have a choice. It's something that you need to do. It's not like you were in love with this person. And now we're making a theatric out of the abduction because that is something that we do.
I think it's more like they probably were uncomfortable because of the age, but also like because it was happening, they were probably like, now I'm stepping into my new role. And
Yeah.
they saw it as like, this is something a wife does. Like, and it's hard to like put our own bias on it because they didn't know anything else.
No, they didn't. But I'm just thinking like I probably would be shit scared. Because like you're already scared on your wedding day, you know? Now people are yelling at you. There's an abduction happening that's like a ritual, and you're just like, what the hell?
I just want to eat.
I just want a cocktail. Yeah, no, you're right. They didn't know any better. But I'm just thinking like you're young, you're probably nervous for your wedding day, and this is, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's wrong. It's a custom that they have, but
Yeah, and it's good to reiterate that to the Athenians and elsewhere in Greece and Italy. This was never forceful. Like this was never like
no,
the man going up and grabbing her wrist and being like,
no.
I got you. Like it was never forceful. It was always done with the utmost respect because, I mean, let's be honest, there was going to be a heavy age gap, which the groom understood and likely received like education on, like, this is what you need to do with your wife, like this is the custom, this is what you're
Yeah.
going to be expected to do and everything. And this is just like really interesting because this is what scholars believe is occurring in the hymn to Demeter, is what scholars are now proposing actually happened in deliberately mimicked marriage rites of the time period. Even if an actual abduction was not practiced, this is a literary evidence of what marriage ceremonies were like.
Hmm.
So even if the girl, the maiden, was not like forcefully taken, the groom didn't launch out of the earth in a chariot and snatch her up as she's
Right.
picking a flower. she was still brought into this new household. She was brought from her parents' household, her father's really, into her groom's. So she was transitioning that way. And when we see in the myth that Persephone is eating the pomegranate seeds, in the ancient times, the bride's acceptance of food was a form of acknowledging the groom's authority of her. Like she was accepting the marriage in a
That makes
sense, which is
sense.
which is really, really interesting. And the torches in the myth that Demeter carries in search of her actually is what her initiates carry at the Eleusinian mysteries, match those that are actually carried by the bride's mother during marriage ceremonies. And we see this carry into the Roman period where torches demarcate marriage ceremonies happening, and female figures are going to be carrying them as she goes to her groom's household. And the bride is going to accept, I believe it's an apple in Roman weddings, to accept that she is stepping into this role of this new household. So it's really interesting that like food and the elements are playing such a huge role into this.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you read the myth. I mean, they're just kind of taking the myth and making it their own. And it's like you said, while it might be weird to us now in modern day, it is a custom and it was a practice and we have to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how big these marriages were. This was a huge thing. You were waiting your whole life to be married off.
Yeah, and I think another thing is like this wasn't the only myth that this was happening. This is not the only real life thing that this was happening in.
No.
No, I mean, shit. In mythology, Hades is out there abducting another individual, and we'll get to that maybe another time. But
Oh,
this
we're
is
gonna
the
talk about
only
that on
time.
Patreon. We have like some things mapped out for Hades and Persephone. Yeah, but it's not his first time abducting somebody.
Mm-mm.
And that's just the way things were. But like I said, product of the time period.
Product of the time period, but also in a way, it's very different because she is given so much power, even amongst other women that she deals with in the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And which is very telling because of if we were upper class wives, let's just say, our husbands might have extramarital affairs. And that was just, the day. That was just the day and time. You understood
That
that.
was normal.
That was but you understood that you had the title, you had the last name, you had everything that came with being the legitimate wife of your husband. And we also see that with the mythology of Persephone, that she's always in control of her own power. She is queen in her own right, but she also has her own affairs. But when others try and take her power, that is when she comes in and says, no, nay, nay. Look at Minth, look at Leus, look at these individuals who try and say that they are better than Persephone,
Mm-hmm.
which is when everything goes wrong.
That's when they just die. Well, I mean, it makes sense because once again, I'm going to resort back to, my Italian culture.
Yeah.
Very prominent men that have money, it's very normal, not everybody, it's very normal for them to have girlfriends. We call them, this is probably like a slang term, gumas, your side. If you ever watch The Sopranos, I'm serious, this is real life. It's
Is
real,
that what
there's
they
like,
call them in The Sopranos?
yeah. And
Oh,
but
did
the
they?
girlfriend though, I don't really know if it's an offensive term, so like don't come at me. That's just what my family literally calls them too. They are just the side pieces. They are never allowed in the house. They're not allowed to call the house. They don't interfere with the kids. Like they don't interfere with the wife is the wife of the household. Like Carmela Soprano, she runs that household. She gets all Tony's money. The girlfriends are just there, like to, do lustful things with and like go to the strip club and have some fun. But at the end of the night, they're going home to their wives and their household. And you're never gonna have that, basically.
So I've never seen The Sopranos, but
Uh-huh.
what would happen if any of those side pieces like dared cross the line? Like,
Okay, so there was an
let,
instance.
I'm never gonna watch it, so like you're not
Yeah.
spoiling it.
So, I mean, it's not really a big spoiler. There was an instance where one of Tony's girlfriends wanted to be with him, like absolutely 100% wanted to be with him. And
Mhm.
so she calls the household and Carmela, his wife, picks up and she finds out she knows her husband's like having affairs, but for it to be so present in front of your face, that's a whole nother story.
I was gonna say, I think when you know like the person and like the name and like they become a real thing, because in your
Yes.
mind you can kind of be like, shut it down. Like I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
see it. It's not real. Like that kind of stuff.
her husband's a mob boss. Like she knows, like that's the whole trope of the thing is Carmela is like this very nice wife and like a wife, but her husband is like absolutely insane, and they go to church and it's just like weird, and it's like he's whacking people off, like he's killing them and burying their bodies out in the trees, but he's also having girlfriends. But anyway, so she like turns a blind eye, but the girlfriend calls the house,
Oh
and
no.
she goes into a state of rage and actually like threatens divorce because the girlfriend called the house and she like flipped out on him. And I think it happened like 2 or 3 times where the girlfriend like got involved, and she was like very protective of her kids. And
Mm-hmm.
just because she was seeing it, it was so real for her. So she does threaten divorce in The Sopranos, by the way.
Now, does because it's Tony, right? Does
Yeah.
he allow her to kind of like do anything about that, or does he
No,
put
he took it into his own hands. So he almost like killed the girlfriend at one point. Like he was like, you don't like, he was sticking up for his wife, which is so fucking weird because he's cheating on her. He's like trying to act like he's the hero in all of this. And
yeah.
he's like, oh, I'll take care of it. And it's like, this wouldn't have happened in the first place if you just stayed faithful like you were supposed to. But he's like, oh, I'll take care of it. And then like he goes and he yells at her, and like she becomes obsessed with him. And, you know,
Okay, so she never like took care of it
not
personally.
that I can remember. It's been a while since I watched The Sopranos. No, Tony always takes care of everything, but it like basically ruined their marriage, even though not him being a mob boss, it was the cheating. That's where they draw the line.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
I
So it's an interesting dynamic.
It is, but it's very reminiscent of like what you see. So in some retellings or some tellings of the myth of, let's just use the example mint, sometimes it's Demeter squashing her and turning her into the mint plant. Sometimes it's Persephone in her wrathful state. Like, I'm sorry, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but each god has favor to some humans and, nymphs and everything. And some gods, the same ones, have wrath directed towards others. So
Um,
Minth got the short end of the wrath stick in that case.
Persephone's very wrathful. I am gonna say, like, everyone's like, oh, she's a flower crown goddess. No, she does have like this really wrathful side. I mean, all Greek gods do. And once again, I don't know why it's a surprise when we say these things. I don't know why people are like, why did you just say that? Because
It's true.
if you
But
look up Hades online, you can find sources where they specifically talk about his wrath, studying it.
doesn't he have, I'm trying to, yeah, I mean, damn, look at Hera and Heracles.
That,
But
that's a crazy
that's a
story.
crazy wrath. You have Poseidon and Odysseus. Like, come on. But her wrath in some myths is she's the one who transforms Minth into the mint plant for overstepping her bounds and going after. She's like, okay, you can have my husband, whatever, but you come from me, you come from my position. That's where I end you. So it is interesting that he isn't the one, that he kind of is just like, well, they overstepped their bounds. Here you go, Leos. You're turning into the poplar. There you go.
Bye. That's what my wife said. Happy wife, happy life.
I'll be over here with the
It's
shades.
not about the cheating. It's about the fact that you came into our house and actually showed yourself. You know what I mean?
And came for my crown. Like, you came for my power. And that's why I say
Yeah.
that their mythology is one of power. It's a power dynamic.
Yeah, no, she wasn't mad about the cheating. She was mad because her crown
It
was
became
threatened.
real.
The one thing
Yeah,
that she has, right? That's like what she has, really. Because without that, what do you have? You know what I mean? If she gets casted out of Hades, like what does she have? She doesn't have Queen of the Underworld anymore. So that
exactly.
is important. Greek
That is
gods are all about the power when you read the mythology. It's very rarely about anything else. It's always like a power dynamic.
it's about balance and keeping that order
Yeah,
together. So very, very interesting. But yeah, wrath, favor, and power are fascinating topics.
they are. And yeah, I think that's it for Persephone. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or
I don't think so. Anything else that you wanted to just add in little tidbits before we sign off for the week?
No, I'm good. I think this was a really good, helpful episode and like really dove into things I don't think people actually know about Persephone. Like, yeah, we know she's goddess of the spring, queen of the underworld, but I bet you didn't know that the dead were worshiping her. Now you know. Okay, I think that's it for today, but don't forget to like, subscribe, rate our podcast in the store, share it with a friend, disturb your family dinner with the Lucifer episode. Send it to someone you don't like that is trying to quote the Bible at you and say, you know what? It's full of mistranslations anyway.
Oh yeah, and for everybody, we are getting some personal Appalachia stories coming in.
Tenn, this is my dream. I don't think you understand.
I know. I'm so excited not only to share the stories with you, but like I'm just so excited for you.
I don't want to know anything. I want a live reaction. I've like literally, this is me as a content creator. I don't tell me anything about the stories, even if they're great and fascinating and you can't wait to tell me. Wait, because I need to have just like, I need
A
to just
live reaction.
a live reaction.
I don't want to scare you
Appalachia.
though, because you scared yourself that one time.
No, it's fine. When it comes to Appalachia, I'm willing to get scared for the rest of my life because I don't know. It's just so fascinating. I can't. I don't know. I like I wish I knew someone that lived in Appalachia or was like a folklorist because I would want them on the podcast. Like I want to talk to you.
It is fascinating. But
Like
yeah,
what's
I'm
going on over there?
excited for you. I don't want to scare you because I don't want you to have to pull out a map again and like scare yourself. So
No, it's fine because I know that I live far away now. So see, if I didn't get scared the first time, I would say, you know what? But no, I know I don't live by Appalachia, so I'm okay. Anyway, elixirs are dropping on the 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Don't forget they're made in limited quantities because these things are
spicy.
they're a little spicy depending on what you need. We hope you have an amazing rest of your fall, and we'll see you next time on Sticks and Bones. Bye, everybody.
Bye.